Well, if you didn't pick it up, that was the Suns theme song backwards, because that is the direction the club has taken. I'm your host Shane, and joining me as always is Tom. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'd be better if we had something good to talk about every Tuesday night, but not doing too badly. Weather down here in Melbourne has been abysmal. Sun came out yesterday, and I'm hoping maybe the Suns can come out of hibernation sometime soon too.
Yeah, well, they're the talking point of the town, especially down there in Melbourne with all the media. It's almost like we're playing clairvoyant these days. Last week we were talking about the Suns list and what the AFL can do to fix it. And now that's all that's being talked about in the media. What do you think?
Yeah, well, clearly they get all of their tips from the GC Sunscast because a lot of what we've been talking about has been coming out in the media. Guys like Jonathan Brown, who, let's face it, he's a Brisbane boy and a Lions boy. He's a father's son. Lives on the Gold Coast, though. We tried to knock him off his bike a few years ago and put him out for a while, but the car was worse off than him. Anyway, love Jono. Don't love what he's saying. He is asking for things that we want, though, so maybe it's worth having a better look at.
Yeah, I had nothing against what Jonathan Brown said. The only issue I take with his comments was what he said about the Gold Coast not supporting the team. He obviously doesn't show up to any of the Gold Coast Suns games because there's always Gold Coast supporters here. There's not going to be 20-odd, 30-odd thousand like you get in Melbourne, but it's a very strong crowd, especially when you consider the sorts of crowd that's rocking up across the road at the Titans when they're playing as well.
Absolutely, and sometimes they play at the same time as us, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And in the end, the Gold Coast Suns really only have to beat the Gold Coast Titans in a crowd response, as that's proof that succeeding, because the Gold Coast Suns were put on the Gold Coast to essentially compete with the NRL, and they're doing a great job.
You could there's another argument going the other way to say that the AFL and the GC17 actually plan things so well in advance, although, we've got some issues with how they planned it, but the actual putting it in motion actually pushed the NRL, who never planned things in advance very well at all, to just suddenly come up with this Gold Coast Titans idea just to put someone in the market to be able to compete against the Suns. The Gold Coast Titans were chucked together in 15 minutes. The Suns were brought in with a 3-year plan. Having said that, though, the Titans haven't done too badly. They're a going cause. There are certainly other teams in the NRL that struggle. I would have thought the Gold Coast that even though they kind of have their crises, the Titans are just sort of a favourite of the Sydney media to point out and say, oh, they're gonna go down. But we both know it's rubbish because they get decent crowds. When they're going better, their crowds get better. And even when they go up directly against us in competition on the same day, they still manage to get 12 or 13,000, and so do we. So that's a win for the Gold Coast to get that many people out and watching something. You've got to remember too that people who follow sports are usually involved in sports. And so they're going to see the quaffle, they're going to see the local sports, whether it's soccer or rugby league or rugby union. They're taking their own kids. They quite often can't even make it to go and see the Suns because they've got to take their own kids up to Beenleigh or down to Coolangatta or whatever, and they just don't make it for those reasons. So, it's not Melbourne who will go and watch two cockroaches walking up a wall and pay premium prices for it. It's the Gold Coast. So, we getting crowds of 5 figures is easily a pass mark for us. If we can start to get crowds of above 20,000, then we're killing it. That's A grade.
Well, the rest of the Melbourne media has been jumping on the Gold Coast Suns as well, talking about the level of concessions the AFL needs to give the club to make it more feasible. It's pretty much along the same lines as what we spoke about last week as well. The priority picks, salary cap, and more players on the roster to allow for a more rounded competitive side.
Yeah, exactly. That's what GWS got, so we owed it. We clearly need it, and it shouldn't be a big thing. Look, there is one caveat though, and a lot of, and even Tony Cochrane has mentioned it. There are other teams that are sort of in this hole as well, and they're below us on the ladder. Carlton's already received priority picks, and so have the Lions, so they're probably a bit further ahead in their list rebuild than we are. And St Kilda has been, they've run ninth, they've done a Richmond, and they've come ninth 2 years in a row, and now they're coming third last, and they haven't come close to being competitive. And we play them this week, so if we can't beat them, then we really do need help. Anyway, we'll touch on that a bit later. I think that one of the ideas I'd like to hear your opinion on is, what if we were given some high picks that we had to trade for existing veteran players?
That's a tough one. The premise, the idea behind it is good, but it then falls back on the issue Gold Coast have always had, and that's attracting high-profile talent, or basically any player that's worth anything, to come up to the Gold Coast. It's all well and good having the picks to trade to a club, but unless that player wants to come, it's really all for nothing.
Yeah, you'd imagine we'd be paying overs. If we were going to trade a first round pick to a club, we'd have to pay the money and give them the pick. But the pick comes free,
and that's why we need a salary cap increase as well to go along with it, to be able to pay a player overs just so that we can get them up here.
Well, there's also the ambassador money. So if we had a first round draft pick to go and get, go and cherry pick a player who was, sees the dollar signs but can also agree to a 5-year contract, only need him for 5 years. They've got young blokes who come through and take their place. They can go back to Victoria or South Australia or wherever they're from. We've had decent players come up here. We've had players relocate. I disagree with the thing that we can't attract them. I just think that it comes down to it, and we're like, all right, well, we've got pick 2. We're going to get a guy who actually says he wants to come here, and then everyone screams and hollers. We're not going to spend pick 19 on trying to get another player to do the same thing, are we? We're going to pick, we've got to use one of our first round draft picks. Well, we've got 2 first round draft picks next year at this stage. Do we spend one of them on a 26-year-old? Do we do a jug trade and send some of our talented young guys and ban a bloody first round draft pick to go and get the best player and go and get maybe Sloan? Can we do that?
Oh, yeah, I think we could, and we should if we can. It all comes down to who we can get. I don't see Andrew Gaff moving here. He's one of the free agents being talked about. Dalhouse from the Bulldogs, I would be perfectly happy using a West Coast pick, I'd say, for Dalhouse.
You would? Dalhouse is what, 27 next year?
I think he's around 25 to 26.
Okay. Look, I like a lot of those Bulldogs players, to be honest with you. He would be my first pick, but there's quite a few of them coming off contract, but we'll get onto that a little later as well.
But then again, they're all free agents, so they can be picked up for next to nothing. The draft pick would be used to either get a player out of a club that would want to come here, and he's still under contract with his club.
Yeah, he's 26 at the end of the year, by the way, and he will be 27 at the end of next year, so we're both pretty close.
So let's move on to the review of the Gold Coast Suns versus GWS. GWS, 20 goals, 14, 134. Gold Coast Suns, 4 goals, 2 behinds, 26. There's really not much to say. The boys just showed up with no intensity, no effort. Besides a handful of players, I'm going to say Jared Witts, Ben Ainsworth, Tuke Miller. Hardly any of them were sighted chasing or tackling, and you don't need skill to chase or tackle. They really just weren't there. It's like their bodies were there, but they were still off on holidays or back on the Gold Coast thinking of what they'd rather be doing. I know it is Sydney, but it's your job and you need to show up.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, Aaron Young looked up and going in the first quarter and then nothing. Harbrow tried hard all day, but again, it's these. He gets the ball. It looks sort of pretty exciting when he gets it, and you think, oh, he's going to do something good here. And we all know that his accuracy by foot isn't fantastic. So when Jared Harbrow has 24 kicks in a game, you know that your efficiency rating is going to go down to about 60. You mentioned a few of the highlights. There's not worth mentioning the lowlights because there's probably more than half the team. It's bloody demoralising. They're young. That was officially the youngest average age of any team this year sent onto the park, which is kind of surprising because I thought we'd sent some younger teams out earlier in the year, but evidently not.
One embarrassing statistic which has come out of that game is it's the first time ever an AFL club has failed to take a mark inside 50 in a game. And, well, now that is one of our honours.
You know what's weird about that, though, Shane, is that we were actually taking marks. Like, normally the problem is that we just don't take enough marks around the ground to get it inside 50. Where we're getting it inside 50, we had 9 contested marks, and so did GWS. So in the contested marking area, we were actually doing okay. We had 55 marks uncontested. They had 86, which doesn't really surprise you. They totally outdid us actually in their handballing, and which is something that you have to question. If a player is forced, a Gold Coast player is forced to just kick it forward, it's generally because they look in their 180-degree periphery and there's no one to pass it to by hand. And shouldn't there always be someone to pass it to?
Yeah, well, that carries it into their run and spread. It was talked about a lot by Stuart Dew after the game, and the boys just seem to like that run and spread to get to positions where we can be damaging with the ball.
Yeah, and we know we can. We've got some talented guys. If you look at the GPS of the runners, there are guys who are doing just as much running as anyone else on either team, which I think is part of the reason that leads to blowouts. Is that they're just getting the ball kicked out of their heads half the time, and they're unable to sort of have the lower their eyes or look around. You're seeing a lot more players marking the ball in this game than previous games, which I was really excited about. I actually had hope midway through the second quarter that we could get back and win. And all these Giants players were going down injured, and it was like the commentators were having a field day. They couldn't even keep up with it. And they always had some update on some Giants player who was out for the rest of the game or having tests and might not be back and this and that. But then we're taking marks, and the guy who's going back, mucking around with it, looking around, who can I kick it to, then kicks to a contest turnover. Like, surely we have a bloke marks the ball, surely everyone starts buzzing around trying to get into space. Or running decoys so that there'll be space opened up over their heads, doing something, You expect that if someone marks the ball on the half-back line or on the wing, Tommy Lynch will just get on his bike and start running somewhere because you know that he's a good chance of catching the bloody thing. And once he catches the bloody thing, everyone runs forward, and then you've got 13, 14 players all aligned with the ball or ahead of the ball who are in the game. And then you can lock it down, and this is the Richmond blueprint. Lock it down in your forward 50. But we're not getting it to the half-forward line. We seem to be unable to even get anyone to mark. Well, as you said, there's 0 marks in forward 50. We seem to be unable to get very many marks forward of halfway.
No, well, it all comes down to congestion. That's what the big issue in the AFL at the moment is, how to reduce congestion. And the Suns are playing that brand of football where they basically just swarm that part of the ground. It's back to the early 2000s of the flood. But, you spoke about Tom Lynch there, and he had a shocking game. But it wasn't just Tom Lynch. He's been copping a lot of the focus because he is uncontracted, and there's all this conjecture over whether he stays or whether he goes. But, Sam Day was just as bad. The only difference was Sam Day also had the opportunity to play in the ruck.
Yeah, well, Day was better than Lynch.
Marginally. Looking at the statistics, Lynch had more touches. The only reason Day was more influential around the ground was his hitouts. Mind you, Lynch was operating at 50% disposal efficiency, so those 8 touches turned into 4.
Yeah. Well, the you're going to compare Day and Lynch. Well, Sam Day had 12 hitouts, which if you go back to last year, Peter Wright was averaging about 8. So you'd have to say as a chop out ruckman, that's doing okay. And the fact that Witt's got 64 hitouts, we've absolutely slaughtered them in the hitouts, and yet we can't even win the clearances.
Yeah, it is a major concern. Well, we've had one of our first questions this week, and that was from Jirik13, and he asks, what are the reasons behind the last 2 games' poor performances? Well, I hope we just answered that question for you, Jirik13.
Yeah, I think we did, and I think it's a really good question. I don't think we can at this stage blame the coaching staff. Although, we've said before we'd like to see a bit of a review at the end of the season and maybe a few of those guys get replaced in the assistant seat. Look, I don't think that the players go there wanting to lose. I don't think that they even go into games thinking they're going to lose. I just think that it gets to a certain point where they realise that they're too inexperienced, too undermanned. They don't believe in each other. They
just go into their shell pretty much early on in the game, and they just can't get into it from then on. All right, and now to finish off the chat regarding the GWS review, who was the most efficient user of the ball for the Gold Coast Suns in that game?
Tough question to ask off the cuff. I don't have a statistical answer to give you, but
I'll give it to you.
Well, I'm going to have a guess anyway, and I'm going to say that it was a good user of the ball by the name of Jack Bowes.
No.
Okay.
It was Heron, Jacob Heron.
Yeah, right.
100% disposal efficiency from 7 touches. He was the best user of the ball on the weekend. The only downfall is he had 7 touches.
He had a mark, but he had a couple of free kicks, I think. And look, I didn't. And the mark that he took was contested, and 3 of his possessions were contested. So, if he could double the number of possessions, he'd be a very good contributor. Look, I've never said that Heron was going to be a big possession getter, but I do enjoy watching him get around the ground and do the little things he does. So good on him, and you can sort of see why. Stewie Jew's a big one for stats, and you can see why he looks at his stats and then goes, "Oh crap, 7 possessions! I thought he was better than that," and then you can see why he was better than that. So he'll be in the team for a while. Mind you, he probably gets dropped this week.
Well, hopefully he stays in the side this week. Otherwise, he has to go to a reserve side that got beaten pretty comprehensively again by GWS. Gold Coast reserves 5 goals 13-43, defeated by GWS 13 goals 17-95. Now, I haven't seen the game. I did read a review. It basically summarised that the Gold Coast Suns were competitive in the first and the fourth quarter. And besides that, they didn't show up in the second and the third, allowing GWS to kick away. It does make a lot of sense. It's the way Gold Coast senior side has been playing, not showing up for a quarter or two. There was some positive news out of it though. Jared Lyons picked up 38 disposals. He also had 8 tackles and 9 clearances. So if he doesn't get a recall after that game, I'll be very shocked. The other midfielder to stand up was Schoenfeld. He had 31 disposals and 10 tackles. Peter Wright had 17 disposals and 7 tackles. And Lemons had 9 tackles and 23 disposals. So all 4 of those blokes have definitely got to be in the frame to come in this week.
Yeah, well, look, the Suns had a good amount of inside 50s as well. So Lemons had 8 inside 50s, and for that kind of player, that's what you want.
So out of Lyon, Schoenfeld, Wright and Lemons, can you see any of those blokes making our senior side against St Kilda this week?
I'll chuck in Jacob Dawson as well. Crossley's had a great week last week and backed it up this week. He's shown that he can perform as an undersized ruckman. We had comparable figures to them in the ruck. They beat us marginally, but that's with a couple of AFL caliber ruckmen. So Wright and Crossley are getting good practice in the NEFL as backup ruckmen. They're 2 metre Peter's yet to kick a goal in the NEFL, but I think that's quite reflective of the team rather than him. He got a lot of disposals again, went after the ball. Look, to answer your question directly, Lyons, yes, has to come in. Wright needs to bloody replace Lynch, but I think they're too pussyfooted to do it. Maybe he replaces Day this week. What do you reckon about that?
I think Sexton, Shear and Lynch are the players that need to be considered to be dropped. Lynch hasn't hit any sort of form, and Day is the one that does seem to be at least using the ball better than Tom Lynch. So I can see Lyons, Schoenfeld and Wright coming in. I'd love to see Lemons in, but that probably means someone like Jacob Heron needs to be dropped.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, you've got a few. Young obviously played on the weekend, and he had been injured. You wonder how well he's pulled up. Did we have injuries from the weekend game? I know we got more fines.
At this stage, the Suns haven't reported any injuries, although there is still doubts over Ainsworth's hand. He was seen icing it up at the end of that game.
That might come back to bite us, hey? Look, at this stage, it seems, and we've pointed this out quite consistently, that even if there's 5 new players coming in, it's like for like, and you can always see who's been replaced and why. So if you're going to take one of our tall forwards out, because Dew has said he's not going to play 3 tall forwards, although against St Kilda, I don't know why not. So if Wright does come in, which he should, because you've got to try something, and the guy can play. And Lemons showed in the preseason. So, yeah, look, I think we could pick 7 players who should come in, and it won't come to that. And so, yeah, it's a crapshoot. We don't know. We don't know what they're thinking. Schoenfeld, on his NEFL form, deserves a game, but you can almost guarantee that he's going to go out and get 8 touches and well beaten.
Well, replacing Schoenfeld with Shear, I think, is pretty much like for like. Schoenfeld's got the form at the moment from NEFL. Shear had a pretty poor game on the weekend. I think Lyons replacing, you'd say Sexton, but Sexton's not an inside mid, so it makes you wonder, is Brodie on the chopping block? We've all been keen to see him jump in, get a couple of games. Is his time up already?
Lyons probably comes in, and then they work out whether it's Brodie or Shear or Sexton or someone else who they all play a little bit of. Don't forget, we've got a fairly large midfield rotation. Some of the time, that's the reason why we start to get overrun, is because we play our best midfield and our second best midfield's not anywhere near as good. So I saw centre clearances where they were running over the top of us, and we had a very, very inexperienced. I was very shocked and surprised to see some of the guys who were lining up. There's every now and then they send Jesse Joyce into the midfield. It never worked. Lyons comes in on the bench and they figure out the best place. Richard Telly's been getting better week to week. We don't talk about him as being a potential out, although if you want to blood the new guys in the second half of the year, then he's going to start having a look at spending the rest of his year on the bench and in the NEFL, and maybe that's it. Maybe he's done. Who knows? I'd say Max Spencer could be in line to be promoted. He certainly had 22 possessions and out of defence that's highly regarded, and we know he can be thrown forward and kick goals. So I don't know. Do you replace Holman after he's had a shit game, and week before he had a good game, and game before that he had a great game? How does it go? They've certainly got a lot of selection decisions to make.
Yes, well, selection decisions are one thing, but at the end of the year, the club are going to have to make some decisions on players and whether they get another year, another shot on the Gold Coast Suns list to try to make something of themselves. So, as promised, leading up to the episode, we did discuss that we'd do a cleaning out the closet style episode. So, now's the time. We'll run through the players on the Suns list. Now, some of these are going to be locked in for long-term contracts, and that's okay. We're going to go through, work out which players we think should be offered a new contract if they don't have one, and which players should be up for trade or delisting. So I'll start by reeling off some names to you, going through the jumper number order. We've got Hanley.
Keep.
Yeah, I agree there. Scrimshaw, keep.
Yeah, for sure.
Rosa is probably due for retiring this year.
Yeah, he's done. Or if the AFL extends our list out by a couple of players, I'd love to see him as a non-AFL playing senior.
He could be really handy in the knee full side if the AFL allows us to do that. Next up is Jack Martin. That's a lock for me.
Yeah. Give him Lynch money.
Yeah. Jared Harbrow, he's out of contract this year, but I think he definitely deserves another contract and we should be trying to keep him.
Yeah, 2 years. 2 years. If he keeps playing at this rate, then he's in our best.
Probably one of the first contentious ones on our list, Alex Sexton.
Yeah, look, I like Sexy. He's when he gets played in the right position with the right teammates around him, he does the job. The big knock on him is that he goes missing. And I'll go as further to say that whole department goes missing when he's the barometer. So if he's been underdone. Having said that, good luck to him. I reckon we'd be able to trade him for a third or a fourth with the Lions, just quietly. He's a Redland boy. He would certainly be in their top 22 at Brisbane. He'd be one of those situations where they'd probably be our only customer. Or I could be wrong. So he's worth keeping for the Queensland factor. He's worth considering to trade to Brisbane to look after him. I think he's not a foundation player, but close to it. So you've got to do the right thing by the player after that many years.
Yeah, I lean towards keeping him now that I know he's a Queenslander. Prior to that, I had him up for a trade or delisting, but definitely I think we need to keep on the Queenslanders with any semblance of talent.
Yeah, look, he's got 11 games to prove himself, and I think he knows it.
Next up is Lonergan. You're a fan of him. You've spoken glowingly about him before, but I just think he's been on our list for so long and he just hasn't been able to prove himself, so he's probably got to go.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for Jesse. He had this sort of same problem last year when he was just struggling to get on the field and get any sort of form. And they gave him a 1-year extension last year. And with the new management, new coach, it's not looking good for him. What I would say will go in his favour is that he really does seem to be a Stuart Dew type. So if he could get back on the field in the next couple of weeks, I think he might even be a possible test for this week for Neefel. Get him there and just play 11 straight weeks without any of these niggling injuries. Maybe get back into the first team and just state his case. If he can't do that, he's gone.
Well, Fiorini, I think, is a must-have, and Ainsworth too.
Yeah, no question.
The next one is Kolajasny. That's a tough one. He's out of contract this year. He hasn't played AFL football consistently for about 2 years now. His form doesn't exactly show that he's adept at that level at the moment.
Well, we know what he could do back in the day, and we know that he can't get close to that these days.
So do you think he's an unlucky one to miss out, or we at least put him on the trade table?
No. I will go as far as to say that he's done forever, and that as it comes close to the end of the year, he'll make a teary press conference and say that he's done for footy. And we've seen it before with other players at other clubs. This day and age, if you have that many concussions and a hard tackle or a seemingly innocuous incident puts you out of the game again. Unless they come up with some sort of way that some sort of material they can wrap his head in, and he can get his confidence back, he's done. I'd love to be proven wrong. It's just tough to see such a talented player have his career go down the gurgler because he can't. He's literally got which. Americans think we're bloody insane for going anywhere near a full contact sporting field without a helmet, but they have the worst rate of concussions and permanent bloody brain injuries than any other football code. So he could be the canary in the cage. I won't say any more about him. I'd love to see him be a 15-year player for the Swans, but I don't think the Saints. Now I've said Swans, he'll go to the Swans and win 5 premierships. Anyway, look at his brothers coming on in leap and bounds, and he's going nowhere. I think it says a lot.
Yeah, it would be a sad news story if we were to lose Colo Jasny due to concussions. He was a good player for us. I just got serious doubts over whether he can get back there. Next up is Tuke Miller. He's a lock, surely.
Yeah. Tuke Miller's one of the most inspired draft picks that Scotty Clayton ever managed.
Okay, and Sam Day?
Look, I think when it comes to foundation players, you've got to look at guys like that as being the leaders of the club. If it wasn't for his injury, Sammy probably would have been considered for captaincy at some point. If Tom Lynch leaves, then Day stays.
Yeah, I agree. Callum Archie.
Oh, look, he's hot and cold, isn't he? He's only young. He's very young, and he'll mature. I think you're going to see a lot of that kind of thing with a young player like him. He's under contract for another year, and you wouldn't dream of delisting him. If he wanted to go home, it wouldn't surprise. But where's home? He's from Western Australia, and his brother Brendan just relocated to Western Australia. Funnily enough, the family relocated to bloody Adelaide, and then Brendan had to sort of go, I've been traded to the West Coast. So does Callum ask to go home? I actually don't think so. I think so.
Well, this seems like a stupid question, but Lockie Weller, we only just got him last year.
Yeah, I think he's actually got the longest contract, or him or Will Powell. Him and Will Powell have the longest contracts at the Suns. They're both going to be around. We haven't seen the best of Lockie. You've got to remember he's a new player, a new club, and the other players don't know how to use him, and he's not quite in sync with what others are doing. He came out and made a statement this week to say he's going to help be a leader around the locker room this week and help the club prepare mentally, help the players prepare mentally for this game, which is against his brother. So I'll give him full ups for that.
Next up, Aaron Young. I think he provides a bit of value. We've probably got him for another year at least. He should be fine.
Yeah, I change my mind about him sometimes, but he's needed.
Rory Thompson, our go-to defender, he's got to stay.
Yeah, keep him forever till he breaks down. Stephen
May, our Indigenous captain, he's got to stay.
Love Maisie. I'll wear his number.
Brad Shear, he's pretty sure he's locked in as well. He's got talent, so we should probably hold on to him.
Yeah, developing player. He's got another. At the end of next year, we'll have another look at him.
Tom Lynch, does he stay or go? Do you push him out the door, or do you try to hold on to him?
Honestly, he's gone, isn't he?
Well, I think so. But
yeah. Until before I was, he's a Sun until I see otherwise. Now I'm opposite. Now I'm confirmed that he's gone, and it will be a surprise if he stays.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to what sort of currency we can get for Tom Lynch. That's what I'm focused on. Next up, Mickey Barlow. He hasn't been getting games this year, but I think he has to stay for the fact we just need mature bodies, even if it is just for NEFL.
Let's see if he can actually play a few games.
I think he'll still play AFL this year. He'll get his chance.
Yeah, but
Next up,
he's one to wait round 23, then make the decision, which is obviously for everyone, but for us, we can't really talk about a guy who's played one quite poor AFL game this year, but was really good for us last year.
next up, Jack Leslie. He's probably going to be traded, honestly. I think we need him in the side as a backup third tall because our defenders are quite tissue paper almost. But he probably can't stick around on the list much longer.
I hope he stays. It would mean giving him quite a pissy contract because I believe he's out of contract. Is he? Yeah, 5 years. Hasn't shown stickability in the top level. I mean, he's been up against Thompson and May, so good third up. Occasionally we pick all three. Doesn't always go so well. I think he's gone because we've got other guys coming up behind him who can do the same job, if not better.
Yeah. Next up is Tom Nichols. I think he should go, but I'm pretty sure earlier this year he signed a new contract for, 3 years possibly? So...
He's under contract and he's got a year to go. So look, he's injured this year, but having a backup ruckman, we're going to need it eventually. So,
all right. Next up is Jesse Joyce.
Definitely keep.
Yeah.
Gold Coast boy, he's doing really well. You don't know if he's going to be in the first grade team as a first choice forever, but if he keeps improving, why not?
Yeah. Will Brodie, I think he's got to stick around. He's going to break into that side eventually, and when he does, he'll just be one of the dominant midfielders of the comp.
The more video that he puts together in AFL, the more he'll be able to see what he looks like and fix it.
Yeah. Connor Nutting, another Gold Coaster, so we probably need to hold on to him.
He's on the he's not on the rookie list, so we either have to delist him or keep him. But surely we have to try him first. So I'd say we keep him. Yeah.
Mackenzie Willis,
gone.
He's got to go.
Gone. Sorry, Mackenzie, but gone.
Sorry. I feel bad. Saying they've got to go, but I just haven't seen him play, or I don't know too much about him. So that's got to tell you something. Next up, Josh Jasker. I met him earlier this year. He seems like a good bloke, and he's shown a bit of form every now and then in the reserve side, but he's raw. He's one of those talents that we're going to have to take some time to develop. So I think he's a keep.
I think so too. I think he's potentially one of those third tall backmen that we need because he's mobile.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to tell when you watch an EFL if it's Jasker or if it's Spencer or because I mean the camera angle's not so great, and often with the stream you're sort of looking at a small picture. Keep for sure.
Lemons
got extended by 2 years, so we'll be seeing a bit more of young Sean Lemons. 3 years, sorry.
Swallow, that's a definite keep.
Yep.
Lions, definite keep.
Got another year, I believe. Lions, so it's prove it. Because he's not the best midfielder in the country, but he's good enough for us.
All right. Well, next up is one that you have been vocal on, and that's Harrison Wigg. You've been saying that he should probably be cut. He's only been on our list for 1 year after we traded for him from Gold Coast. Why do you think that?
Oh, well, for starters, no value. Secondly, he's a good sample player. So that can mean that he can make the step up to AFL. But he didn't make the step up to AFL with the Crows in 3 years. He isn't going to be playing a game for us this year. And there's rumours that he's locked in for next year, that he's got a contract, but I don't know about that. I think all those sample guys will put on a 1 year prove it deal, but I've been wrong before. What I actually said on Big Footy was 10 players who are due to come out of contract who could be delisted. And I included Tom Lynch on or traded or delisted. I included Tom Lynch on the traded count, and I included Harrison Wigg. But it was if nobody else on the list wants to be traded. And if you go by the past record, we've had at least 2 or 3 players each year want wanting to be traded at the end of the year. So if anyone wants to be traded, then we'd probably survive the cut. But I will say this: cutting him and then re-rookieing him could be the better option.
Okay, well, I think Wigg stays. He's only played 3 NEAFL games this year and been crippled by injury. He was a good player in the Adelaide reserve side in the Sandful last year, and several times pushed to break into the Adelaide side that was headed for finals. So he would have had to have hit some pretty good form to get into that. Next up is Will Powell. We only just got him again, new recruit. He needs to stay. He looks like he's going to be a superstar when he can fill out into his body.
Yeah, he's going well.
Jared Witts is a definite keep.
Yeah.
Jack Bowes. Peter
Jack
Wright.
Bowes is the future. Peter Wright is the even more future.
Ballard.
Ballard's going great.
Crossley.
Goober. Love him.
Aaron Hall.
20 years for us.
Aaron Hall, you think we trade him or get rid of him?
No, he's going to walk in free agency. He's a non-free agent as far as that's concerned, so it'll be a delisting. That doesn't mean much for us. He's played 7 years, so I think he's a year short of free agency in that regard. What are people going to give if they know they can get him for nothing next year, or we can delist him and they get him for nothing anyway?
Well, he's out of contract this year. So he's either going to have to re-sign with the Gold Coast or go into the draft if he doesn't accept a trade. So next up is Dawson. Keep?
Yeah, pick him this week. Keep him, yeah.
What do you think about McPherson? He was on fire at the start of the year, but then broke his leg, didn't he?
You need to have McPherson playing at his very, very best, in my opinion.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Riscatelli, you think we keep him? Or is he retiring?
He's been getting better, and you can see him and Dave getting back to they're nowhere near their best. Dave's got more chance of getting back to his best, or changing up his game. Riscatelli's got no more tricks to offer. He's been a bloody great servant of the club, consistent the whole way through his career. Just had a rotten injury. And I'm sorry, but it's time to go Michael Riscatelli.
Yeah. 2 left. Heron, I think he sticks around being an academy boy.
Yeah, he's been great. He's got to put on some size and find a spot. But he deserves to be. Him and Dawson should be upgraded. And
another academy boy, Spencer. He should stick around as well. He's shown enough.
Yeah, and he's a local. They're all locals, those kids.
Okay. Well, from that list, I've got Rosa, Lonergan, Riscatelli and Willis is gone. And then question marks over Kolajasny, Leslie, Nichols, Hall, Lynch. So there's plenty of room to move. It just depends on whether the club decides they want to keep some of these players or they'd be better off chasing tail for someone else.
Those are players. Some of them are tradable. We already have 7 draft picks, and if we're going to trade a few players for draft picks, we can bone up on picks, and then that'll release spots. You don't want to see us be delisting like 7 guys. You want to see us at least be able to. Some of them will, be traded. Some of them will be delisted, but we need to get a return. And then we need to be able to turn the draft picks that we get into better draft picks and players. Just quickly on the weekend's game, the Saints played just as poorly as we did. They had a really bad first quarter. We had a actually reasonably decent first quarter as far as keeping in the game. And then the Saints, if you wiped off the first quarter score, kind of kept themselves in the game even though it was over at quarter time. And we did the opposite. So if we can have a good start against the Saints, it's on.
Yeah, both sides will come out firing, I think. The Suns have stuff to prove. St Kilda's got something to prove. So
are you going to go? You going to go there?
Yeah, I'm definitely going. All right, well, thanks for joining me, Tom. I'll catch you later.
Take it easy. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the GC Sunscast. If you like what you hear, please get involved in our small community over on bigfooty.com on the Gold Coast board. chat with myself, Sunners, and Tom, 17er, as well as dozens of other Gold Coast fans. You can reach me on Facebook or Twitter at 32bitshane or email me 32bitshane@gmail.com with any queries. Leave a comment or review on iTunes and SoundCloud, or a donation on Patreon. Just search GC Sunscast. Donations are in US dollars and will go towards reliable tech and hosting the podcast so listeners have access to our earlier episodes. Thanks again. Go Suns!